Hello, my friends. We're here. You're gonna see a box in the bottom that you don't recognize. This guy down here. You're not gonna recognize him. You see my cursor. Um, but I have a message. Okay, I have a message.
Oh no.
I'm I'm a butcher the hell out of this. Bayern München ist der what is this word? Schlechteste Verein im Weltfußball, which means Bayern Munich is the worst club in world football. And I just want all of you to know that. And Julian's German, right? You're quarter German.
Yeah, Aneil hit me with the, yo, what's your ethnic background like 10 minutes ago?
Oops.
And yeah, here we are.
Here we are. So I had to deliver that message in his native tongue, just so we can kind of, we're accepted of everybody. But I need these, bro, because y'all were shining this weekend at EUIC. I can't see anything out of this, man. It's like completely dark. But we have the 17th place Arc Armarouge player with us today. How are you doing, 17th place Arc Armarouge player?
I don't know, I'm doing pretty good. It's like my first big finish, so that feels really good. Um, I don't know. Lots of people my age, like born my year, Labella, Piper, uh, why am I blanking on names? Even people born like year above me, Rowan, Raymond, all of these dudes are correct. Oh yeah, Lucas is my year as well. So it feels good to like finally feel a little more on a similar level, even though I'm still probably below them.
Hmm.
But I don't know.
Good stuff, man.
Nice.
Good
And
stuff.
yeah, why don't we kind of just skip to that? But why don't you introduce yourself first, Julian? Let the
Oh,
people,
They
listeners, know
know
who
who
you
he
are.
is. He's
Say,
famous.
yeah. So I'm Julian. I'm a Toronto local. Uh, I know Aneil and Ciaran from local cups and stuff. People think of, I don't know. I'm born in 2005, so same age as Labella Piper. I've never done one of these before, man. I have no idea what to say. Um, I'm in university studying engineering, and I play Pokemon for fun.
nice.
Good
You're at
times.
Man,
the you're at the good old University of Toronto.
yeah, great
Yes,
school.
sir.
Big scholar down
Uh,
there. Big scholar.
man, 2005, Anil.
Yo, like this guy could be my
You,
son. It's crazy. It's actually crazy. It hit me last week because yeah, my birthday was last week, and I hit, bro. I'm 26 now, and I'm like, yo, I'm closer to 30 than I am to 20. Like I never thought this day would come. Like I always think of the old heads, and I'm like, yeah, that's never gonna be me, bro. It's me now. I'm the old head. And when a man comes on the podcast, he's like, yo, I'm from 2005. It hits crazy now. It actually hits crazy.
Dude,
I don't
I'm
even know
not
what to
even
say.
19 yet.
You can't even drink.
I cannot. I could in Europe. I didn't, but I could have.
I was gonna ask, did you have a beer after your
great
run?
kid.
I didn't. No. I was
Sad.
too tired, man.
That
True.
is fair.
Nice backdrop,
Uh,
Karen.
Thanks. I'm in my uncle's office in Bromley South. For people who know the geography of London, so I still haven't gone home yet. Uh, so a little jank recording studio for me today. Don't have my microphone either, but hey, we got to make sure we get out the shift gear on time. So
It's important. It's important. But yeah, so we're here today. You guys both had a fantastic weekend at EUIC. Obviously, blind meta, a lot of weird things going on. Bit of an unpredictable top eight, I would say. Maybe even unpredictable top 16 or top 17, even in this case. Um, so, like, a lot of different things moving around. How did you guys feel? Like, overall, how was the experience? Like, Pokemon aside, like, how did you guys like London? Was the venue still the Excel Center? Like, how was everything? Julian, go ahead.
yeah, Julian, go ahead. Yeah,
So I've never been to London because I started playing competitive about like last year. Bombed last season, but you know. Um, so I didn't get my invite in 2022 when Worlds happened there because it's the age up year and I hadn't started. But and I didn't go to UIC last year either. So this is my first time in London. We went to go see the London Eye, Big Ben, all that sort of stuff. That was cool. And the Excel Center is definitely like massive venue, super nice. I would go back.
It's pretty cool, right?
yeah. I think
Hmm.
this is my fourth time I've been to London. Second time for Pokemon. I think all the Pokemon players who say London's a bad city literally just do not leave the area where the Excel Center is. Because yes, that is a horrible part of London. There's nothing to do there. But London proper, I love. Like the architecture is super nice. Like they have a really good diversity for a major city. The food is fine if you don't eat British food. And London's a diverse city, so just don't eat British food. British food is like whatever. But my one criticism of London is like this place is like crazy expensive. Like even taking like public transit is like the cost of almost taking Ubers in some of these cities that we play Pokemon in. So That's my one criticism. But no, I love London as a city, and I have family here. Like my cousins have been showing me a great time. They've made me go to a pub pretty much every night, but it's
Doesn't
good fun.
that doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world.
It doesn't, but man, I've drank this week like basically how much I drink in like a month in Toronto. So
Building up your tolerance, baby. Hey, yeah, like I said, not the worst thing in the world. We like pubs. We like drinking in
yep,
moderation. We do not support
yep.
crazy drinking on this podcast.
Actually, you know what too? We did pub trivia. It's called the Railway in Bromley. So I'm basically a local at this pub. Like every time I come in London, I go to this pub like at least 3 times. I won trivia night on Monday,
What do
or
they ask
last
you at trivia
Wednesday.
night?
Sorry. Well, they asked a lot of British questions, but luckily my team had a lot of British people. But Aneil, you'd be proud of me. There's one question. It was sports related. No one on my team knew. I crushed it. I got us 4 points. It was like a 4 point
What was the
question. So
question?
it was name the four most popular sports in the world in
Okay,
order, and I knew the answer actually.
that's impressive. Actually, I don't think I know that answer.
So give me a guess. I
Okay,
think you can do it.
soccer number one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Number two is tough because it could be a bunch of things. Um, I'll hazard a guess. I'll say basketball.
No.
No,
All right,
what's
you're
number
done.
two?
Julian, give me a guess.
Oh man, soccer for sure number one.
Think countries with a lot of people.
Uh,
Okay,
there's like I don't know. I'm thinking like Asia, but like
badminton.
No.
is it like a martial art?
No.
No. What do they
All right.
play in Asia?
It's cricket. Cricket number two.
Cricket. Okay, I was
Okay,
gonna.
cricket was gonna be my
Cricket was
three.
definitely in my top four,
Yeah,
Number
but
three is field hockey,
interesting.
you knew
and then
this.
I did because I've heard this question before.
Okay,
And then number four was tennis. So
dude, that's difficult. What the hell?
yeah,
Okay, well,
yeah.
hey, big ups, bro. I'm proud. I'm proud. And it's kind of jokes. You're like, yo, they're all British questions, and thankfully I had British people on my team. But I think everybody probably had British people on their team. Like, given where you are, I don't think there's that many tourists. But hey, man, I'm proud your team was British.
Yeah, and then
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
actually just one more British thing too. Then we went to a house party after. We played this game where like you have to describe a word, and
Okay,
like you get the clue card, and like half of the clues are just like normal things, but like the British way of saying it. So me and my friend Camille were on a team, and like our teammate, my cousin Nicole, would like try and tell us what to say, and we'd be like, "Oh, like shallow end." She'd be like, "No, no, no, that's not the word. Like we call it something different here." I'm like, "All right, whatever." So that game I got farmed,
that's crazy, bro.
uh, but
It's
yeah.
too many
Anyway, let's go back to
dialects.
talking about Pokemon.
Yeah. Let's get into what everyone's here for. Although our pub stories are pretty good. All right, so we're gonna get to both of you at some point. Ciaran, I love you, man, but I'm gonna go to our special guest first.
Do it.
This is the roguest of rogue, I think, that has touched the top 32, at least from what I've seen so far.
Hey man, my testing partner Braden, Espatra EX, top
Yeah,
32.
yeah,
He cooked.
that was sick. That was sick. Both you guys are you're in your bag. So talk us. So I know you were playing it a bit before rotation. Maybe talk us through the deck a little bit, like what it kind of aims to do, just a general idea behind it, and how you kind of came to the conclusion.
Let me just pull it up. Oh, my face got really dark there.
Yeah, it did actually. I noticed that.
Find it on Limitless.
Yeah, we'll have it on the screen too here, so everyone can see it.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, um, this format, the deck gained like it didn't take that big of a hit, for like as much as the other decks did, and it gained some new stuff, which is why we ended up playing it. Max Belt makes the deck really good. You can like load up an ARMAROUGE EX with 6 energy and a Max Belt and just kill Charizard and then not get one shot back. I hit 6 Zards day one, and I went 5-1 into them on the day, so that felt pretty good.
Pretty good.
You also got Gouging Fire this format, which is 260, but with a choice belt kills Lugia or Tina, so it's like good into Arc and Lugia. And then probably the two best attackers in the deck are MEWX and Radiant Heatran. Twice day two, I used Ampu very much to win against future hands, and then Heatran just sets up so many checkmates by just basoning twice or 3 times or whatever, and just blowing up anything on the board.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
actually, Julian, before we go too much into your run, like I want to start off like, how'd you like come to pick this deck? Maybe other Arceus decks you considered, or was it even like Arceus you were considering? Were there other decks you considered? So let's start there. So let's start. Tell me how you got to this deck.
Okay, so man, it must have been like about a month or probably 2 months ago. Um, I don't know. Braden sends me a lot of like random decks, like the most random things you could ever think of. And so a few months ago, Braden sent me this Arc Armarouge deck, and I was like, "Hey man, this is pretty good." Because we played Arc to Toronto as well, and then I played it to like different variations of Arc. But I played Arc to Charlotte. That went okay. Toronto, everyone who played the deck day two, it was Arc Dura with a Mawile. Braden had gotten ninth at SAC, and then Labella got ninth at Toronto with the list. And then this was
Nice.
a good deck, so I don't know. I'm a Arc bot now, I guess. And then at Charlotte, uh, scared of Zard, played Leafeon. It was okay. I know Mario, our local, also likes the grass attackers in Arc.
Shout out Mario.
Um, I don't Mario, he's the goat.
Yeah.
So then he sends me this Arc Armorouge list, and I'm like, wow, this is a pretty good deck, man. It's like doing things. And then I took it to a couple cups. I won a cup. I beat like 6 Guardies, even though the Guardy matchup was probably terrible, like Delphox or whatever. So I was already comfortable in the deck. Decided to play it to Vancouver as well. Because it was a comfort pick. I started 5-1 and then bottled it and went to 5-4. Um, so that was pretty cool. I lost my win-ins to the 60 card mirror in round 7, and then I lost to Sneaker Talk, also another local legend.
Where the hell did you
Um,
find a 60 card mirror?
so the guy that was staying in my room with me,
Oh, okay.
Oliver Wong, I gave him the deck. He hadn't played in like he was also on stream that event, but he hadn't played in like he hadn't picked up physical cards since Toronto Regionals, and so he didn't know what to play. So I was like, "Here, man, have this 60," and we hit round 7, and it
Okay.
was the most random thing ever.
So it was your
But I lost
boy
the
at
flip.
least. I thought you
Yeah, it was
just
my
found some
boy.
like random guy playing Arc Armorouge, same
No,
60 in Vancouver. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Sorry, carry on.
yeah. So then like we were testing new format, and we were like, well, what does Arc Armorouge lose to? Doesn't really lose to much except for CPOW. And Ancient Box isn't really a deck, so we thought. Turns out there were a couple in top 8, but oh well. Um, Other than that, it doesn't lose to much. Like you farm block, you farm Zard, or like a Zard that doesn't know the list, you farm them. Um, so yeah, we played that. The other consideration was obviously Espathra, which Braden ended up playing anyways. Just because that like you auto CPOW almost. Um, the matchups switch a little bit, but you're like still favored into a good portion of the meta, or at least 50-50. But I ended up Labella was like, "There's no way I'm playing Armor, or there's no way I'm playing Espathra, so let's just same 60 Armarouge," and we sent it.
Nice. Yeah, so that's what I was gonna kind of fall into. So you obviously have all these different matchups. People are really interested to hear matchup spreads, just in general. So I want to give you just like a section to kind of talk about matchup spreads a little bit. I know everything seems kind of favored. Is there anything that you do not want to hit?
I mean, I'm scared of CPAW just because, fire, water stuff. But,
Yeah,
like,
true.
also, if you go second into CPAW, you're having a really bad time if they hit turn 2 backs because they just blow up your 2 prizer and you're just like, well, this is really bad. But if you go first, like, I was testing the CPAW matchup with a friend, my friend Neo, and 2 games in a row, he didn't bench Manaphy. And, like, some of the CPAWs just don't play Manaphy. But you can go like Mew-EX, copy Greninja, kill double Frigibacks, or you can go Delphox, kill double Frigibacks, and then they just kind of lose. So it's not like unwinnable, but against a good CPAW opponent, if they draw it well enough, you're probably just losing. You can like max belt Trinity Nova, but that's even still a lot to ask for. Um, Greninja really hurts the deck if they like find uh, counter catcher, or not counter catcher, prime catcher, kill Bidoof Charcadet, you're like suffering. So that's really bad. Ancient Box was tough as well, just because you're like going through one prizers all the time, and then they just like out trade you. I was also a little scared of Lugia, but I beat the only one that I hit in both days because he didn't know that you're supposed to attach V-Guard to Cinccino to stop Delphox. Um, so like game one, um, I forget what happened game one. Game one, I was like, you can just sort of Trinity. Maybe the matchup's not that bad, but you can just sort of Trinity Nova the Cincinos, and then they run out of threats because they can't set up enough, and you just Delphox them at the end. If they bench two little guys. But if they put V-Guard on the Cinccino, it puts their Cinccino out of range of Delphox because it's 110 plus 30 is 140. So then you're like again suffering. Um, Other than that, I don't know. I think like Labella thought that the Zard matchup was sketchy, but he was playing like I think that the reason why we thought that in testing was because we were playing against Zard players who knew the 60. So there were no tricks. But like against one of my Zard opponents didn't read ARMAROUGE EX, tried to hit into it, didn't kill it. Sucks to suck, I guess. One of my Zard opponents didn't know that I played Mew EX in the deck, so he went down to 1 for no reason, and I just blew him up. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I think the list becomes a lot better in blind format, like EUIC, just because you have all the surprises.
Okay, so let's stop there. So I think Charizard's obviously the most popular deck. It also does well in the tournament.
Yeah.
So you're saying here that if the Charizard player has like perfect knowledge of your list, like would you say they're actually favored, since they know what to play around? But or is it if there's like even lists or like both people know the list, like it's an even matchup? What do you think?
I think it's definitely close, maybe a little bit favored in like for Charizard, just like 55-45, maybe even 60-40, but you still like if you draw well enough, they're not killing your arcs right away. So like if they go boss kill your whatever, if you have to squawk ability for some reason, it's really bad, and then if they boss kill it, it's bad as well. But sometimes you can just get away with turn 2 Delphox with Magma Basin, and kill both their Manders or kill both their Pidgeys or whatever, and then make your way through the matchup that way. But yeah, like
I was gonna say your Delphox seems like a very big surprise Pokemon. I actually faced an Arceus Armarouge deck. I was playing Chien-Pao, so it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I actually forgot about Delphox.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's one of those cards that most people do forget about. So would you say like if you're playing an evolution deck, let's say Chien-Pao, let's say Arceus, or not Arceus, sorry, Charizard, like do you think you should be mentioning Manaphy if you're going second? Like is that something you really need to try and get down right away, or do you think you can kind of survive without it?
It depends. Like as CPAL, if you can get 3 Frigibacks, you're chilling. Like I think 3 Frigibacks is probably better than 2 Frigibacks and a Manaphy. But I can also go like boss kill double bib at some point with Delphox, which is like that's pretty good for me. As Zard, if you play if you're playing Bib Zard, you can bench double Bidoof and not really be stressed as long as you have 3 Manders, because if I kill both of your Charmanders, you just lose. Again, I think like 2 Charmander or 3 Charmander is better than 2 Charmander, 1 Manaphy. But if you can only get like 1 Bidoof, 1 Charmander, and then a third guy get the Manaphy, so I can't snipe random things.
Yeah, it does feel like your deck is almost never going to turn to Delphox. So I feel like
surprisingly, it happens more often than you'd think.
But do you not think like if you this is why I'm gonna ask you here, like if you turn to Delphox, isn't your board like extremely fragile to just having your Delphox knocked out?
Yeah, your board's really bad. You like the only time you want to go for turn 2 Delphox is if it's game winning. Which I actually learned like at some point during the tournament. Like my one Zard loss, I got greedy and went for turn 2 Delphox, kill Charmander Pidgey, but then you take 2 prizes and then they kill your Delphox, and then you have no real board state, and then you piece together a Trinity Nova, but it's like not enough to actually do anything. Against Zard, you kind of just want to take a 1 prizer, unless you're slowing them down to oblivion.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Sorry, go ahead, Ciaran.
I was say too. I think the other thing to talk about your deck is like so most Arceus decks they just purely rely on Arceus for energy acceleration, but you play lots of copies of the Magma Basin. So,
Hmm.
how important is that card? Is that like a card you feel like you need to use every single turn to keep up tempo, or do you think normally like one Trinity Nova is normally enough energy to get you going for the game?
I think like the most important part about Magma Basin is, well, other than it's good for mid game acceleration because you don't have to Trinity Nova back to back to get all your energy in play. Like old Arceus decks, like Arcdura, you just sort of like Trinity Nova a couple times, you set up a Duraludon, whatever, start nuking things. But with this version, you kind of would rather be attacking with your toolbox attackers. So you go like Trinity Nova, and then once the arc dies, you Basin on an energy, and then Basin. The reason why we play so many is because even though the stadium war is like eased up with rotation with no path, um, you want to Basin to Heatran because that sets up the attack. So like two Basins, um, blows up Pidgeot, all the V star Pokemon that are relevant. Um, so you just really want to find it more than anything. But yeah,
Gotcha.
usually one Trinity Nova. Sometimes you'll Trinity Nova twice just because you can, um, and then like be able to set up the ARMAROUGE EX against like Zard, for example. I don't know.
So, question I have that I think a lot of people are also probably wondering is you spoke about the toolbox attackers a little bit. Obviously, your deck is kind of it's like you have a bunch of Swiss Army knives, but then you have a lot of like specialized kind of attackers for certain matchups. Is
Mhm.
there any like attacker that you think people might be surprised is good into a certain matchup? Like, is there anything that kind of surprised you at its utility, or is everything kind of cookie cutter?
ARMAROUGE is actually good in the Ancient box, which is
Okay.
like it's not the biggest surprise, but like Rowan was talking to me a little bit about the deck before my winning in. Um, Unfortunately, I hit the Dunsparce version, so he was playing like Boss and Prime Catcher and just random stuff.
Yeah.
So like Rowan's advice wasn't the most helpful, but um,
Thanks, Ron.
he s- he said if you the standard Ancient box lists play mostly just Counter Catcher, and they play the Awakening Drum obviously, so they have no like Gust. But if you sack a one prizer and then go into ARMAROUGE EX, unless they Roaring Moon EX you, you kind of just win. So you can like sack a one prizer, Iono them to one, shove ARMAROUGE EX and say you don't have it, and then it's usually enough if you're on two prizes. Um, so that surprised me. Mew EX into Iron Hands was very surprising as well. Like it's it makes sense that it's super helpful, but like my two games against the Iron Hands deck, um, one of them he just could have attacked me and I probably lose. Because I was bench locked, I couldn't put down a Mew, but he boss killed an Arc with arm press after I had Trinity Nova'd into it, and I was able to amp him for game. And then my other opponent in game three, I Delphoxed. He benched Mew EX, so I boss killed it for my first two prizes, and then I Delphoxed Miraidon plus Iron Hands to set up the amp math on the
Hmm.
Iron Hands. And then he just attacked with it because it was his only attacker, and he just lost to Mew EX again.
Yeah, that seems like the map actually against the future box deck.
Hmm.
Cool. I think another question I had for you was so Arceus can only Trinity Nova to like other V Pokemon, and you only play Arceus and one Delphox V. So are you normally just like benching Delphox V to Trinity Nova to it, or are you benching like two Arceus when you're gonna
It's
attack?
it's usually double arc, but like
Mm-hmm.
some decks can't one shot your arc. So you can go like you can get greedy and go single arc and just charge three, retreat, and start moving stuff around.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
I have a really important question that I'm sure everybody's wondering, and like maybe this is a question for you, Braden and Labella. Is the plural of Arceus Arceuses, or is it Arceii?
Uh,
I
I
need
don't
like an
know.
Arcanjor opinion.
Well, it's definitely not Arceus's because it's pronounced Arceus.
Well, I got
But
fact
like
checked. Okay,
Arceus's are sounds kind of weird. Arceii, like octopi maybe.
right?
Uh,
I feel like it's just
Cacti,
Arceus. Like you say, I have multiple Arceus. No.
but you don't say I
like
have multiple
moose.
cactus, do you?
I've no, but you say I have multiple moose.
Moose
Yeah, but I
is
think plural of
itself
moose
a
is
plural of
moose.
moose, but
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
other words that end in us, typically they turn into eyes, right?
cactus.
Cacti, octopi.
Well, octopi, the plural is actually octopuses, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, it's like super interesting. Or octopods.
Octopods. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I just needed an opinion. That was a
Fun
really
fact.
important question. That was
Alright,
really like
drop
itching my
drop
head.
in the comments what you guys think
Yeah, definitely.
of
Yo, I've been
Arceus.
calling it Arceus for years, bro.
I'd go
I
with
think that's
Arceus. Arceus
Yeah,
sounds good.
okay.
it sounds scientific.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think another card, Julian, I wanted to ask you about was the Squawkabilly EX. So normally Arceus decks don't play that. So is this just to make sure you don't brick turn one going first, like make sure you get that energy down? Like what was the logic behind playing a Squawkabilly?
So if you don't play Squawkabilly and you have a dead hand, but you have a nest ball, um, it sucks to have the Squawkabilly on your bench. Like you don't play Collapse. It feels really, really bad. But I'd rather have a game feel really, really bad than a game that goes nowhere because I can't draw any cards. Right?
Mm.
True.
Like that's the full logic is just like, would you rather do nothing or play the game with a liability on your bench, right?
Makes sense. And then
Yeah, that
your
makes sense.
1/1 Beebs line you got, did you feel like that was enough? Like that seems like on the surface it seems a little thin. Did you ever find yourself like bricking mid to late game and wish you had a bit more?
1/1 Beeves is super grief. Uh, like
It
that's
seems
just
like
but
it.
there's no space in the deck. Like you could cut like I don't know some sort of ball search plus a research or an Iona, but that feels so much worse. You have like Muex for some sort of late game draw sometimes if they kill your Bib. Also, if they're killing your Bib, they're not killing your attacker, which or your Armarouge. So I'm not that mad about that. Um, and like oftentimes you just sack out of it, you know? Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But uh but yeah, I mean the 1/1 bid felt fine. If you don't see either piece in the deck, you obviously just don't grab either piece, or like if you prize your one Bidoof, it makes your decision really, really easy to Ultra Ball away the barrel, which I did appreciate in the weekend.
Cool. Okay. I'm just Kieran, do you have it seemed like you had a question loaded up. Did you have a question loaded up? I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think the only other Pokemon we haven't talked a lot about is the Gouging Fire. So it just does like 260. So is there any numbers like this is for specifically? I saw you had a choice belt in your deck.
Yeah,
Is this to take out V stars, or what else is
yeah,
Gouging Fire really good for?
yeah. Gouging Fire, you just go like you bench Heatran, you bench Gouging Fire, you promote Gouging Fire with Choice Belt, and you start basing the Heatran. And then you just have two guys that hit 280, and they have to deal with the Heatran eventually, because if they don't, then they're just dying. Um, or they like, and if they vacuum your belt, like it also kills Iron Hands. That's a nice one.
Mm,
Or CPOW. But you usually want to like close with the Gouging Fire if you're going to CPOW, just so it doesn't like get return KO'd.
cool.
Um, but yeah, just hits
Okay.
big.
And I
So
think just
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
one more thing, one more card in the listing before we
Yeah.
keep going. So we've mentioned Heatran a couple times, but can you kind of like explain like why this card's so important? So I think it's probably like a Radiant Pokemon that hasn't seen a lot of play, but in this deck it actually works really, really well. So kind of explain to people maybe how you fit that into your prize map or what this is really good against.
Yeah, so Heatran, I'd say other than Mew is probably the best attacker in the deck. Just because you want to get energy in play with Magma Basin, but you don't want to damage your guys for no reason. So you can like just load up the Heatran with damage while moving the energy off of it. So it feels really bad for your opponent to boss kill. But then if they don't boss kill it, you just Magma Basin again and then move the energy onto it and then they just lose, right? Like it's if you're going into it, the best part of it is that it screws with your opponent's prize map because they want to go 2/2/2 into an arc deck, but if you go with a Heatran, they have to deal with it, especially if you do it turn 2 or turn 3, which feels really good about the card. Like even into if you go back to last format and you're playing against like Guardy, for example, it was often very favorable to hit with like Flame Cannon using Armarouge, the baby one, just because you like sack a one prizer. It's similar to like any deck. You just want to go
Mm-hmm.
with a 2/2/1/2.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is there normally you find you can get your board to the point probably when your opponent's down to two prize cards where it's just Heatran like one prizers, or do you find that normally you're gonna have like a two prizer that has to be on the bench by that point?
Oftentimes you went like arc arc, So if they don't kill it, then like you can sometimes bench just the two arcs and sit there if it's good. But you also don't want to like research away your or ultra ball away your two prizers. So like sometimes because if they're good in certain matchups, right? So like you will choose to bench a second two prizer, or a third two prizer rather, if you have to play research. Like I found myself in some games going bench gouging fire before research just because gouging fire is like necessary in that matchup, or like very good into the matchup rather. But yeah, sometimes you can just have Heatran and some one prizers, and then they're forced to take a one prizer, and then if they don't kill the Heatran, um, they just lose to Heatran. Or if they do kill the Heatran, then you just promote like a Tarkadet, and then you can retreat it for one, which is your Magma Basement attack for the turn. So it's yeah, it's
Cool.
it's doable. It wasn't the most common, but it's doable for sure.
Yeah, that seems like a checkmate. Like if you can ever pull
Hmm.
that off in a game. So it kind of reminds
Yeah,
me of Chen Pao, where it's like if you ever do a turn where you force them to kill Greninja or one prize, you kind of just win on the spot. So
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, the next question I have for you is, so obviously like this deck was, as you said, better while it was concealed. Like it was like one of those things
Mhm.
where people didn't know the 60, people didn't really know like what attackers you were dealing with, all that kind of stuff. Um, Going into this weekend in Orlando, I'm sure a lot of people watching this are going to be interested to play the deck. A, would you recommend people to play the deck into this meta? And B, if are there any like kind of changes you'd make to the deck if you were to play it again this weekend?
I think the list is pretty perfect. Like I didn't want to change any cards this weekend. We thought about like I don't know. I know Alan wanted like random text to try to beat Lugia because the Lugia matchup felt really bad, but like Lugia sucks, so people aren't gonna play the deck.
Yeah.
CPAL also didn't like it had a pretty big showing day one, but it didn't really pop off this event. So I don't know if it'll be super big or super small. If you expect it to be super big at Orlando, probably don't play the deck. But if you expect Zard to be big again, you can definitely against like the day one opponents, just like outskill them if you have some time on the deck. And the chances that they read the 17th place list aren't necessarily the highest. Like if I top eighted, I think it'd be way more pecked against than like some random top 32 list, right? I'm gonna play the deck again to Indy. I don't really care. I don't have much. Exams are coming up, so I don't have much time to test. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
call it a day. And like I'm not going to Orlando, but um, if I was, I probably would play the 60 again.
That is an authentic shift gear answer. That's like that's what me and Kieran say every week. We're like, yo, I'm just gonna play the same thing again. Like I don't want to play anything else. Like it is what it is. It's all good.
Yeah.
That's sick. Yeah, so like yeah, the deck's really unique, really cool. And the one thing I would say to that is like you'd be surprised how many people like actually are gonna read your list and are gonna like actually know your 60 because it's a huge, huge event. Very unique kind of take to it, and I think people are gonna be very enthusiastic about it. And these are the kinds of builds that when especially like I think obviously this is a bit of a different case because this is like the beginning of the meta, but if this was like in the last meta, people would be all over this. And I still think people will
Hmm.
be all over this, but when someone's looking for a change, they want something like kind of roguish, you've proved that it can succeed at a very high level. So I do think you'll be surprised with how many people probably know you and know your deck now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
always
it's
interesting.
also it's the arc deck on Limitless. You go to
Yeah.
Limitless, it's like uh
that's
the
pretty big.
top X decks. It's like here's your arc deck.
Hey, that's pretty
Go play
big.
it.
That is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
It was cool to be there with Alan because Alan and I tested together before the event, and I was like, "Hey man, you should play Chark," and he said, "No, I'm gonna play CPAO," and we both got the thing. So
Yeah,
We
that
were
was nice.
very excited
I
to
respect
see
that.
you do well. We always love having authentic Canadian guests on the podcast. So you doing well was fantastic. And you did it with a rogue deck. So like what, bro? What more
Mhm.
can we ask for?
Yeah,
Um,
I guess one thing I was gonna ask too, Julian, is so I think this is your you said this is your first big finish. So maybe can you give some advice to people when they're having their first deep run? You made it all the way to your winning in, so maybe describe like how you felt, like the pressure you felt, if you were nervous, like whatever, going that deep. So how did you handle that for your first time?
Yeah, so like I day two Toronto, and that was my first day two this season and ever. And that was like a sort of relaxed sort of day. I was playing an arc deck, right? Like it's not the most skillful thing in the world. Um, but you just like after one, it's like fine, and then at EUIC, I was like I was 6'2", and Braden and Labella were trying to get me to play at 6'2", and I'm like, there's no way I'm playing because I want to make day 2 at my first IC. So I tied, and then they were like, okay, 6-0 to 6-0 to top 8, I guess. Round 1 went fine, round 2 went fine, round 3 went fine, and then once you're there, you kind of hit a, this is real, this
Yeah,
could
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the most important thing to know is that like you're just playing Pokemon, man. You're just play the best Pokemon you can, and if you do that, you can be happy with the finish regardless of how it ends up. Um, but yeah, like in previous formats, I kind of took the game a little, or started to take the game a little too serious. Like it's just a game, man. Just have fun, uh, and it'll be fine. Play the same way. Try to play the same way that you have been the whole event. And yeah, I don't know. The other thing about like finish like this is like I had to go 5-0 to get to the win in day 2. And after 3 games, one, you're like, okay, this is a real run, and you start feeling unstoppable. Like you're playing some of the best Pokemon of your life, and you just feel really happy. Um, I remember after round 5 finished, because my mom she came to the event with me, but I didn't see her all day because I don't know, she was just sitting with Justin C and Tristan C's mom at some table because Justin also made day 2. But yeah, I texted her after round 5. I was like, "Where are you? I haven't seen you all day." And she came, and I sort of just like collapsed because the emotion was really strong into her arms. It's a very sweet moment. But yeah,
It's very authentic shift gear stuff here. This is like extremely authentic. Like the whole like just play the damn game, man. Like it's just Pokemon, play
yeah,
the game. You're right, man. You're right. Once you get in that point, you're playing the best Pokemon you've played in your memory, right? You're not really thinking and honestly, you're locked in. Just get
yeah,
locked in. You're nice and
Yeah,
locked in.
I think one thing you said that really resonates with me is that you do feel like when you start getting the wins rolling, like you do feel like you're like on a run. Like it feels like it's meant to be. Like
Yeah.
hmm
I remember this year when I was playing at LEIC day 2, like it just felt like every round I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna win this round. Like I felt like
yeah,
I was playing so well, and I'm like, it just
Yeah.
felt like the cards were coming my way. I'm like, yeah, I know I'm just gonna make it. And I
yeah,
think you're right. You just gotta keep like every round is you gotta kind of treat it independent of each other. Just like treat it like any other
hmm
round.
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
I find the moment I start
nice.
thinking about it, it gets so much harder. Like,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can't start
Oh
thinking.
yeah,
You do not
yeah,
want to be like, oh, I need to go like 201 on my last 2 rounds, or I need to do this. Like that's a
yeah.
really
no,
bad way to start thinking. You
I
gotta
actually
just be like,
find
I'm
it
just gonna win
like
this round.
I find it deceivingly hard in day 1. And like when I'm in day 1, because you're thinking about big picture, right? You're thinking about 9 rounds. You're like, okay, like eventually that thought kind of creeps into your brain, like, okay, I got to go 6-2-1 or whatever you want to be. But in day 2, because there's only 6 rounds, like it kind of flies, right? You're sitting there and
yeah,
you're winning like round after round or whatever. You're not really thinking. Like I find that every day 2 I'm in by about round 3 or 4, I forget how many rounds I've played. Like you're just kind of sitting there, you're just kind of playing. You're nice and refreshed. So like that one 100% resonates with me. Like just look at what's in front of you and don't worry about what's ahead of you kind of thing.
hmm
Yeah,
So,
100%.
okay, so I know Julian's our guest of honor. I know we were going through his run, but Ciaran, you had a pretty decent weekend as well. You have this is shift your host diff. I'm sorry, but the guest has to come first kind of thing. So here are your 5 minutes of fame that you have every single week. Please tell us about your weekend
Yeah, well, thank you, Neil. I'm really happy I get to talk about my weekend on my own podcast.
on the Shift Your
Uh,
podcast.
yeah, so I think to no one's surprise, I played Chen Pao this weekend. To be honest, like it's just a new format. It's like I didn't play that many of the other decks. Like I know how to play Chen Pao the best of like any deck. So I'm like I felt familiar with this. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna play this because I know I'll play good Pokemon. I actually played a lot of games heading into the weekend with the Roy Moon to Dunsparce deck. I will give myself some credit. I did say last week, I was like, this deck's under the radar. I put in my top 3 picks, and one made top 8.
Yep.
Also, shout out to Aneil because he put Gardevoir, and I trashed it, and it was the bubble at 9th. So,
We
Aneil and I
produce
did have
quality
a good
content
weekend. Yeah,
sometimes.
we produced some like under the radar picks, so shout out to us.
And
Okay,
actually, sorry, I also want to point out Andrew played the shift gear list. Andrew Estrada, former world champion, played the shift gear list to
there
UIC.
you go. Yep,
Sometimes we
world
produce
champion.
quality content. It's not always, but sometimes.
Well, Aneil, don't mention his record though.
Hey, I wasn't going to. You're the one who even brought it up.
Yeah, so I actually really loved the Roy Moon Dunsparce. I think if I had more time to practice going to the tournament, I would have played that deck. I want to practice it this week, so I might play it for Orlando. But now I think the cat's kind of out of the bag with that deck. That I got top 8. I was a little not upset. Like I'm happy for the guy that he got top 8 with it, but I'm like, oh, I wish this deck no one knew it existed still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't have enough time to practice it, so I'm like, you know what? Let's just play Chen Pao because I know this deck is good. I played a really consistent list. I played 3 copies of Cypher Maniac's Codebreaker. I played like 4 Irida, so the deck felt really smooth. It felt way more consistent than I've been playing at the last couple formats. I mean, I lost still like a lot of rounds just not setting up. Like, I lost around to Lugia, which is one of my best matchups because I was like sitting there going draw pass. I lost around to Arctina because I'm like, that's a free matchup, but I went draw pass. It just felt like I won most of the rounds where I got going. And then like I lost like a mirror because I went second. I lost to Tina because I went second. I didn't play Manaphy, so I got Greninja. So I think that's one thing I would say is like my list was a little off. I think the only card I would have changed was my canceling clone for Manaphy, because I think that makes your Lost Box and your Tina matchup favorable when you go second, not just like favorable when you go first. And it gives you like a puncher's chance when you go second into mirror. I mean, Chen Pao has the same problem it always has. It's like it's so hard for the deck to like go 15 rounds in a tournament and like set up enough times for you to win 12 games. So, and also the format was very hostile to it this weekend. I think about half my opponents were playing Airy. I played against like a lot of Charizards that were playing. Like I played against 2 of the Regieleki Charizard decks. I luckily beat them both, but that's also a matchup where it's like less comfortable for you. So I think heading into this weekend, I think there'll be less Chen Pao hate. But definitely this weekend, there's a lot of people teched out and ready to play against Chen Pao.
Yeah, it felt like there's a lot of antis going around, but it made sense. Like it made sense because Chimp was like the second biggest deck there. Like it kind of added up, and there was I saw someone tweet about it like, "Yo, all these podcasts are hyping up Chen Power. All y'all at now," which is, hey, I mean, facts. We'll take it on the head, but
I mean,
it
I don't really
did
think that's facts though at all, bro. Like it was
it.
the second. It had a positive conversion. Like there's more CPAL percentage day 2 than day 1, and
Yes,
like 2 people lost to winning it with Chen Pao. Like if they
yeah,
really just drew better, we'd be like, oh, 2 Chen Paos made top 8. Like it still did fantastic.
yeah.
So to whoever tweeted that, I'm saying you're wrong. I'm standing on business that Chen Pao is
Stand
still
on
a pretty good
business.
deck.
I do think to a small degree that it was maybe a little bit overhyped. I do agree with you though. Like it was like probably a turn away from being in the top 8, and this conversation never happens. But yeah, I think that is part of it. Like I think like YouTube influence, like meta influence, all that kind of stuff, like hyping up these certain decks is a big deal. And I'm sure there out of like the 9 or 10 people you played with Airy, at least 2 of them were thinking, "Oh, I want to make my Chen Pao matchup better," and they played Airy, right? So it definitely makes sense. Going into Orlando, I actually think it's in a very positive spot, which I guess I also said last week, and so did you. But I do think things are going to change. Obviously, Julian, with your deck, things are going to kind of adapt around that as well. I think Gardevoir's on business now too, man. Like, there's a lot of things that are going to change here, but it was fun watching you fellas go on your runs there. I just saw win, 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 win. I was like, all right, the boys are cooking. Like, I don't even need to. There was a point in time where I stopped checking for like 3 hours because I assumed you guys would just go 3-0. So
Yep.
big shout out to both you guys. So just to kind of sign off here, Julian, do you have any advice? And I know we talked a little bit about like what it was like making your first day 2, or sorry, your first IC day 2, stuff like that. In terms of like your meteoric rise to fame, so to speak, do you have any advice for people who are like kind of starting out, like maybe they're in your position that you were in last year? Is there anything that you wish you could have told 2023 Julian about Pokemon that would have made him better?
I don't know. I think like the most important there's like a few most important parts of this game. In terms of getting better, like get yourself acquainted with some pretty solid players. That definitely helped me out. Like in the summer, I was playing against Benny, who got second in seniors at this IC in some online event, and I knew him from locals. And then he threw me in a Discord server with a bunch of top players, and I was like, okay, sounds great. Now I'm in a testing like group with Labella and Braden and whoever else. So that's like super important. Just play decks that you're comfortable with, that you think that you enjoy, and that you think that you can play well. Like I know last year at Orlando, I played Lost Box Ray, the amazing stuff, and I went like 2-3-1 or something because I had like a week of experience on the deck. That was a complete throw. Never do that, man.
Yeah.
Just just play the decks that you're comfortable with, play the decks that you enjoy. Make sure to not lose track. Like obviously, Worlds is like a big goal for a lot of people. But if you don't make it, you're gonna make it next year. It's gonna be fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Ciaran, I'll let you sign us off, man. Any final thoughts? You guys are blinding me with your stardom. I'm gonna go incognito. Take us away.
I love the shades. Good looking, Neil. I'm sad I missed the eclipse actually.
You didn't miss
No,
much.
no final thoughts. I think great weekend as always. Thank you so much, Julian, for coming on the show. Congrats
No,
again on
thanks
your
for
big
having me,
finish.
man.
Yeah, it was great see you do your thing there. I will be in Orlando this weekend if anyone's there. Aneil will as well. Come say hi to us if you want to come say hi. Other than that, not much.
I can't
Thanks
see
for
either of
watching.
y'all, but I'm sure you look beautiful. To all our viewers, I'm sure you look beautiful too. I can't see any of you, but hey, thank you again for coming to the Shift Gear podcast. You know what it is. We got an authentic third host right here, by the way. He's saying all the right things. So every single week we have someone come on, and I'm like, they might be better than us. So
Yo, just get me on again after I top 8 Indy with Espathra. Don't worry.
say no more.
All right, if
Say
you
no more.
top 8 into with this bathroom, you're welcome to come back.
Hey, we
Maybe
might
it'll be
get
Santiago with Espathra. We'll see.
when we
There you
sell the
go.
Shift Gear
Nice.
franchise. If we're like old and we need to pass on the torch, I'm taking notes, bro. I'm taking notes. But hey, that offer's open. If you top 8 any regional ever, we will have you on as a guest the next week. We'll set that
Sounds
in
good,
stone.
man.
Everybody who's watching this heard it. It's set in stone.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking of top 8ing events, I think I still owe you a play pack because I didn't top 8 Portland.
I
I
wasn't
got
gonna
you.
bring it up.
I'll get you soon. What
Appreciate you,
events are you
dog.
going to? I'll find you.
You'll
Anyway.
find me. You'll find me.
Yeah.
Anyways, everybody, thanks for coming. Appreciate y'all.